Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. Today, we are talking about 6 things no one tells you about postpartum. You know us, we love to educate and empower people so they know what to expect so they can be prepared. Postpartum is no different. So, in today's podcast, we're going to talk about postpartum hair loss. We'll talk about contractions or after pains postpartum. We'll chat a little bit about night sweats and body odor. We'll also talk about breast leakage, the first poop, and the good old jelly belly. So if you are thinking about preparing for postpartum, don't forget that we have a great free download on all of the things that are necessary postpartum and nice to have postpartum. So we'll link that in the show notes below. Make sure you go and check that out. And as always, if you like this episode, make sure you give us a nice review on Amazon.
Welcome to the She Found Motherhood podcast. We are doctors Sarah and Alicia, maternity physicians and moms who have been through it all. We want to empower you with knowledge so you can have the best pregnancy, birth, and postpartum experience you can.
She Found Health and She Found Motherhood is meant for general medical information only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This information does not apply to every situation. If you have questions or if you've received different advice, please contact your healthcare provider. Always seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed by She Found Health and She Found Motherhood and our guests are not representative of any of the institutions with which we are affiliated. Some of our podcast episodes are sponsored so that we can keep getting great info out there to you, our listeners. We only partner with companies that we truly believe in. Some of our links and suggestions may be affiliates, and we would appreciate you using them to help fund this important work. Now let's get to it.
Welcome, everybody. Today, we are talking about 6 things no one tells you about postpartum. So we thought we would tell you. So the first thing we're going to chat about is postpartum hair loss. Sarah, take it away.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel like I am still growing my hair out 4 years postpartum. So at about 3 months postpartum, most people actually start to lose their hair. This is because the hair has actually paused its normal cycling throughout the pregnancy, and now it's just getting back to its typical pattern. Now, don't worry, your hair should start growing back within 3 to 6 months as it gets back into its normal cycling. And you're not losing hair, you're just shedding hair that you would have shed if you were not pregnant.
And this is why everybody's hair looks so great in pregnancy, because it stops falling out in pregnancy.
Yes.
Right? It all stays there and the rest of it continues growing. So it's this big catch up of hair loss.
Totally.
And then back into the normal cycles we go. But it can be totally frightening.
It can be very frightening because your hair can seem like it's coming out in clumps. So there's no medical treatments that need to be done, but there are some things that you can do to help manage the hair loss. And this includes using a volumizing shampoo, which can just make your hair appear more fuller. We recommend avoiding conditioning shampoos because they contain a lot of heavy conditioners that can weigh the hair down and make it look limp. We generally recommend using a conditioner formulated for thin hair, so these are generally lighter and don't weigh the hair down as much. And just primarily apply your conditioner to the ends of your hair where most of the damage tends to be, rather than at the roots, because that will weigh your hair down more. Now, most postpartum people tend to get a haircut at this point to get a style which makes their hair appear fuller and is easier to care for. The other thing we recommend is avoid pulling your hair back tightly or wearing hats too often, as this can lead to more hair damage on your remaining poor little hairs. So, one important thing to be aware of, especially if you have longer hair during this period of excess hair shedding, is something called a hair tourniquet. So this is when a hair that you've lost can get wrapped around your baby's finger or more often its toe. So we recommend stripping your baby down once or twice a day and just having a quick look at their fingers and toes. If you see a hair wrapped around a digit, just try to unwrap it from their finger or toe. Or if you need to, snip it away. Occasionally, and I really haven't seen this in my career, but I know it's happened.
I've done it once or twice.
Have you? Yeah. It can get wrapped around so tightly that you actually need to seek medical attention to help remove it. And so one thing I always recommend to my patients is babies cry all the time. And often we can't figure out why, but if they're fed, they're changed, they're dry, always have a look and make sure that there's not a hair tourniquet that's bothering them. And then last but not least, now we did say that there's no medical treatment recommended, but one of the other reasons which may cause hair loss is hypothyroidism, or low thyroid, and low iron stores. So if you're prone to either of these, it is good to get some blood work to exclude this and stay on any iron supplements you were taking in pregnancy as needed for a little bit longer, just to support your iron levels as you move back into that post-pregnancy state.
And certainly as you're postpartum, if you do suffer from hypothyroidism, generally speaking, your body is still equilibrating during that time. So it's just a good idea. Yeah, stay on your meds and get it checked at some 6 to 12 weeks postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
Contractions postpartum.
After pains.
Are also known about. Yeah. And they often get worse with each pregnancy.
Do.
Yeah. So your uterus is a pretty amazing organ. So it's a muscle, a big muscle that is maybe the size or smaller than your fist before pregnancy and grows throughout your pregnancy to encompass and hold your baby and then pushes your baby out. So it's a really incredible organ, but it doesn't quote unquote bounce back. Hate that term. Both apply to uteruses and pregnant people or postpartum people right after delivery. It took 9 months to grow that big. It takes time to shrink down after delivery. As we are breastfeeding or pumping or seeing cute babies, we release oxytocin. Mm-hmm. Oxytocin is that drug or that hormone that your body produces to get contractions going during labor. It's also that love drug. And so it also causes contractions postpartum. Most often people find that this happens when they're breastfeeding or chest feeding, and they'll notice that they get some cramping during that time and they'll have a little bit more bleeding right afterwards as well. Totally normal. That's just your uterus contracting down to its normal size. And it can take 4 to 6 weeks to get back to its kind of pre-pregnancy size. The other interesting thing about oxytocin is its role in actually breastfeeding or producing milk is by causing the cells around the alveoli in your breast to contract, which expels the milk through the ducts and out the nipple. And this is known as that letdown reflex or milk ejection reflex. Mm-hmm. And some people can feel this happening with I used to have that, like a tingle. Yeah. So I always knew when it was getting time to feed because I would get that tingle and then my child, like 5 minutes later, would start crying. So the contractions of your uterus can be pretty mild, or in some people, they can be quite painful. And often it contracts any blood in your uterus out, and then you'll notice that you have increased bleeding after feeding for a short period of time, which we chatted about before. That is totally normal as long as it simmers down afterwards. So these are often worse, as we said, with subsequent babies. Mm-hmm. Taking pain medication can be helpful for this, but sometimes just understanding what is happening and why it's happening is enough for people to manage it.
Mm-hmm. I really found them bothersome with my second and third. At night, like I would lie in bed and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cruel. You're having contractions again.
I never had them.
Oh, you're so lucky. Yeah. So anti-inflammatory. So taking ibuprofen, like Advil or Motrin, would generally be the best pain medication to help prevent them. Yeah. If you're like me and you don't want to have those pains. Okay. Next up, we get asked this a lot actually in our Q&As, and I don't think we've talked about it that much. So we definitely should share a bit more around it. It is night sweats. So these can be super dramatic, soak through your sheets dramatic, but they are a common side effect of the decreased levels of estrogen and progesterone, which occur postpartum. So you have super high levels of estrogen and progesterone, you birth your baby, out comes the placenta, and those hormone levels drop. Now, it can take a few weeks or even a few months for your hormones to return to more normal levels. So some techniques that people use to manage these night sweats include sleeping on a towel to help absorb sweat, using moisture-wicking sheets, keeping your room nice and cool, wearing lightweight sleepwear, so light cotton or linen, drinking cold water before bed, cooling your body with a cold cloth, or using a ceiling or portable fan. Along with night sweats, many postpartum feel that their natural body odor changes or becomes more pungent during this time. Now, this is thought to be for a few reasons. As we discussed, there's often increased sweating during this time, and the shifts in hormones may also lead to changes in body odor. Now, newborns have really poor sight. They can barely see like a foot ahead of them. And so they rely on other senses to find where their mother's breast is. So a stronger smell might help guide them there. There's also a thought that maternal sense of smell increases during this time. And so even though your body odor may not smell significantly stronger to others, you may notice it a bit more. And I get a lot of patients asking me about this. So the question is, what can you do about this? We know that part of the smell of body odor is a result of bacteria next to the skin. So regular cleansing with soap and water can help to decrease this. Postpartum can be a tough time to find enough time to shower daily. But even if you can't do this, using a washcloth with soap and water, or even a baby wipe, might help to keep your armpits a bit fresher. If the smell really bothers you, using a mild deodorant might help to mask the smell a bit for you. And if it doesn't bother you at all, then you rock it, sister.
Yeah, don't worry about it. And again, as your hormones start to shift back into their normal state of being, this hopefully will improve as well. Or your sense of smell will get worse. One or the other.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely had night sweats. And they're They're like, it's like a preview for menopause.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Menopause is the same thing, right? Your estrogen is low. And that low estrogen, remember, can also cause vaginal atrophy, which is why oftentimes people don't self-lubricate as well during sexual intercourse.
We have a whole podcast.
We have a whole podcast around that. So have a listen to that with the lovely Dr. Kelsey Mills, and we'll post that below, that kind of recovering from childbirth. And that's one thing we talk about as well, that we often don't warn people about. The next issue is breast leakage. Now, in those first couple of days, you're just struggling you've got your colostrum and it's very small volume, but super jam-packed with amazing kind of nutrients and immunoglobulins and all that good stuff for baby. And usually for most people around day 2 to day 4, their quote unquote milk comes in. And this is that next stage of milk production. And this is a different type of milk than the colostrum, and it's more copious amounts. And often people's breasts increase to the largest they have ever been in their life.
Oh my God, I remember that.
And they're all veiny, and this is that engorgement phase, right? And with that increase in breast milk comes breast leakage. So we actually have a postpartum checklist, what you need postpartum checklist, and we'll link that below. But one of the things we talk about is breast pads. So these are kind of things that you put into your nursing bra, to help just collect that leakage. Otherwise it goes through and then goes onto your shirt. And there's all kinds of Instagram reels and TikToks about that breast leakage. It's very normal and it's not worrisome. The other thing that you'll notice is when you're breastfeeding, if you're breastfeeding or pumping on one side, the other side is going to leak as that letdown happens. And so this is great milk to have. So if you have one of those kind of milk collecting systems, the Milkies or the Haka, you can actually just put this on your other breast to collect some of that valuable milk rather than it going to waste. I wish I had known about this because I was an underproducer for sure. So any little bit would have helped. But so that's very common, having that breast leakage. And you'll often notice it when you get that oxytocin release that we were talking about earlier, that little kind of nipple, like that breast tingly. You'll often notice that you'll have some breast leakage or milk leakages there. You'll also notice that it sprays everywhere. It's everywhere. So
and it
make
comes
sure
out of more than one hole.
Oh yeah, and it's all over the place. So I learned the hard way to make sure that I had a wipeable surface to my breastfeeding chair, because it's all over the place, or washable. I did have a washable one.
And you might notice that like as you go a few weeks to months postpartum, if you're out and about and you hear a baby cry or something, that may trigger an oxytocin letdown. And so we do recommend keeping some breast pads on handy for the first little bit. And I think we have some linked in our Amazon shop. Of our favorite.
Totally.
Hey, Sarah, do you know what I've never asked you? Did you take a prenatal course when you were pregnant?
We did. Even though I'm a maternity care provider, my husband and I thought it would be an important process for us to go through together.
That's so cute. It must have been so hard for you guys to coordinate your busy schedules, though.
Oh, tell me about it. I was a medical resident at the time, and he was working full-time. We really struggled to find a course that would fit our needs and ended up doing a semi-private course that still was challenging to schedule and quite expensive.
Wouldn't it have been nice for you guys to have access to an online course with evidence-based content that you could do from the comfort of your own home or on your own time at your own pace?
You're telling me. If I had had access to something like our Pregnancy to Parenthood Prenatal Masterclass, it would have been a game changer.
And that's the big reason we put this course together, to provide parents with access to a reliable, comprehensive prenatal education from the comfort of their own homes and the ability to watch it and rewatch it when and where they choose.
Plus, it's got so much great information about preparing for the 4th trimester, which I'll admit, I felt really unprepared for. We focus so much on labor and birth when we're pregnant without understanding how challenging breastfeeding in the 4th trimester can be.
I hear ya. And that's why we put together such a comprehensive module all about what to expect for the 4th trimester and for your newborn.
If any of you listeners are pregnant and thinking about a prenatal course, I may be biased, but I would 100% recommend our online course. Head on over to www.shefoundhealth.ca/masterclass to check it out.
We promise you won't be disappointed or your money back.
Okay, so next up, number 5 is the first poop. So this is something that people are often really fearful of. Most commonly, if you've had a more complex perineal tear, like a 3rd or 4th degree, but even some people who've had milder tears, 1st or 2nd degree, labor and birth is a really intense experience and a musculoskeletal injury, as our colleague Mel Desaulles, who's a pelvic floor specialist, describes. And oftentimes the muscles that surround your perineal floor have been torn. And even after cesarean birth, your bowels get a little bit moved around. You may have labored. You may have even been pushing. So there's a lot that's happened down there. And you may be afraid of your ability to control or pass your first stool. So generally speaking, what we recommend is that you stay super well hydrated. So drinking enough water so that your urine is light yellow to clear, and that you are taking regular stool softeners. Now, the one we generally recommend is PEG is the generic name. And so you've probably heard us talk about it. Restoralax, Laxaday, Miralax, I think are the 3 different brand names.
And we have put this in our pregnancy and our postpartum boxes.
Yeah.
If you're interested in looking at the boxes, we'll put the link below, because this is something that everybody deals with and everybody is scared about, either constipation in pregnancy or constipation and kind of concern around that postpartum poop.
Yeah.
So we've made sure that we've included that in all of our boxes.
Yeah.
And lots of other great stuff for that postpartum and birthing experience as well.
Hair.
Yeah. So make sure that you check out those boxes. They're jam-packed of all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. We'll put a link in the show notes below. So we recommend taking your Restoralax or your PEG, drinking lots of water, eating high fiber foods. And then when you go to have your first bowel movement, if you have a squatty potty or a stool so that your knees are at the level of your hips or above, that can really be helpful. And then just try and sit and be patient, straining as little as possible, but you often do have to contract a little bit to pass that stool. But don't worry. It's more important to poop than it is to hold it inside. We don't recommend any stimulating laxatives. So things like Senecot, there's another one, I forget, but no stimulating laxatives, because we really just want it to be soft and pass easily. And if there are stitches down there, that's fine. They will hold tight and you will get through it.
One thing I recommend to people is to get a face cloth or washcloth and just put some warm water on it.
Yeah.
And just support your perineum, so the area between your rectum and your vagina, while you're having that first bowel movement. Again, you're not going to blow through your stitches. You're not going to tear anything, but it just gives people a little bit more confidence, I feel like, when they're doing that. And then the other thing, that every time you're going to the bathroom postpartum, is making sure that you're using that Harry Care bottle to just make sure that your stitches, if you have some, stay nice and clean. So yeah.
But you can do it. You got this.
You gotta have to do it.
Yeah, you don't have much of a choice.
Okay, so last but not least is Jelly Belly. So this is what our stomach can look like immediately postpartum. And for some people, it goes back to normal pretty quickly. And for some people, it takes a while, and they get asked while they're carrying their newborn in the grocery store when they're due for their next baby, just because those muscles haven't contracted down. So let's keep in mind, it takes, like we said for your uterus, it takes 9 months to grow a baby and for your body to stretch and change to accommodate that baby, including the those up and down abdominal muscles and those kind of ones that come in from the side. So they all stretch to allow your uterus to grow to accommodate your baby. And we all have those beautiful bigger bellies in pregnancy. Totally normal. And so those muscles also take time to come back to normal postpartum, to get back to the spot that they were. And so they shrink down, and they'll shrink down, but it takes some time to do that. And so some people feel like they need a little bit more support. I know that I wore my pregnancy support belt postpartum. I just had one of those like elastic band type ones, and I just pulled it up, and it just gave me a little bit more support. And some people, they're fine and it doesn't matter and it doesn't bother them. And so they don't feel all jiggly and weird like I felt. And so it's not a big deal. One thing to keep an eye on is the diastasis in pregnancy. Now, we did a podcast with this and we'll link it below, but diastasis in pregnancy is when your abdominal muscles separate in the midline. Every single pregnancy is affected by diastasis. It's a normal part of pregnancy. Most people, those abdominal muscles reattach back in the midline. They get back to their normal space postpartum, but for some people, they don't. So at 6 to 8 weeks, if your abdominal muscles don't feel like they're back in the right spot, it's a really good idea to go see a pelvic physiotherapist, because they can do a proper assessment, and they can also give you some advice around rehabbing your pelvic floor and your abdominal muscles, musculoskeletal injury, remember, to get them back in shape. So don't be scared of the diastasis. It's a very normal thing in pregnancy, but making sure that if you're feeling like those abdominal muscles are not back to where they should be, talking to your care provider or seeing a pelvic physiotherapy for some guidance around strengthening those up, because we really want to make sure any rehab that you do is properly guided. Just if you had a knee injury or a shoulder injury, we would want properly guided rehab so you don't do more damage. Same thing goes with your pelvic health, your pelvic floor, and your abdominal muscles post-delivery.
Yeah, and Melissa, our colleague who I mentioned earlier, has, for those of you who may live in smaller communities and don't have perhaps a pelvic health provider, lots of people do virtual, and Melissa also has an online program that you can sign up for and do postpartum pelvic floor recovery from home.
Yeah, and
So
she guides you through it really well, and
Yeah.
she gives you all kinds of great information. So
Okay.
we'll link that below in case you don't have access to a pelvic physio, or it's super expensive going to pelvic physio. So if you don't have extended benefits, this might be a more affordable option for you, but also helps to guide you in the proper way to make sure that you are rehabbing things appropriately.
And I think she gave us a discount code.
Yeah, we'll have a look for it and we'll post it as well. Awesome. There you have it. Hopefully that helps, gives you a little bit of pre-warning, or if you're postpartum, you're like, oh, I'm actually a normal human being. You sure are.
I know.
You
We
sure
need to
are.
talk about all of
The things. Have a great day. And once again, thanks so much for listening to us. And if you have a moment, can you pop over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a 5-star review? Because that really helps. And send us a DM if you found this useful, or take a screenshot of it and share it on your social media so other people know that it's out there.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to check out our website at www.shefoundhealth.ca and to sign up for our community for weekly bump blasts. Make sure to check us out on Instagram or Facebook at she.found.motherhood, and head on over to your favorite podcast app and leave a review and a 5-star rating. If you enjoyed this podcast, take a pic of yourself listening to it and share it on social. Make sure to tag us on it so we know to keep making them.